can verify, you can extract, verify, and extract token metadata. Let's see how we can put that into use. The first thing we're going to do is, let's consider a scenario where we are going to create a to-do. For we to do that, we have to define the to-do struct, right? So type to-do, and the underlying type is a struct, and the to-do should have the user's ID, which is of type int64, and the to-do should have a title. So this is just the two stuff this to-do needs to have. So let us wire up the function to create the to-do. So say func create to-do, right? And we're going to use Gene here. So we'll say gene.context, and let us initialize. Let's create an instance of this to-do here. So we're going to say var to-do of type to-do. Right, now let's check the input the user gives us. We are expecting the title from the user input, so we're going to say if error c dot should bind, right, should bind JSON. So we are going to pass the address of this to do. So if there is an error doing this, we are going to return it to the caller. So we're going to say c dot JSON http dot status. Let us use unprocessable entity, right? Status unprocessable entity, like so. I think I'm not doing okay. Everything is fine. So let's return a message like say invalid JSON. So if the user provides, for instance, instead of a string, it gives us an integer, we are supposed to throw an invalid JSON error here. Then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to extract the token. We are going to call this function here we've defined. So we're going to call the function to check if the token provided is valid. So we're going to say, let me just comment this. I'll say extract the access token metadata, like so. So we have the access token metadata here. So we're going to say metadata or an error. So we're going to call extract token metadata, this function we have above. Then we're going to pass in the request, like so. So we're going to check for error. If error is not equal to nil, we're going to return c.json. Let's return status of unauthorized, okay, because if for any reason we could not verify this access token, it means the user is not authorized to make this request. So we're going to say unauthorized, right? Unauthorized. So that's about it. We're going to return here. Sorry, we forgot to return here, so put the return statement here. So if for any reason we are not able to get the metadata from this, we are going to return and with a static code of 401. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to check this metadata against what is saved in our Redis. For we to do that, we can simply query our Redis DB here. But I think for to make our code clean, let us create a little helper function that will help us verify if the metadata here is same as what we have in our Redis store. So let us create a function called fetch auth. Sorry. So we have a function called fetch auth, right? Now we are going to have the auth ID, the auth details rather, and it's of type this struct we defined above, the access details, and this is going to return the user's ID, which is of type int64, or an error. So this is what we're going to have. Now let us have the user ID defined here, or the error. While we are querying our Redis store, we're going to have the client.get. Now we're going to get the ID based on the access UUID passed in. So let us check for the results. So if for any reason there is no result, if the error is equal to nil, we're going to return 0 as the user ID and the error. So if you are not getting the user ID for any reason, we should have this returned. Then the next thing we're going to check is we're going to convert the user ID return. Remember, Redis is a key value store, and the key is saved as a string, same as the value. So the user ID we are getting here is a string, so we need to convert it to what? We need to convert it to int64. So let us forget about the error while converting. So we are going to use the string convert helper, and we are going to pass int, right? So this is what we're going to use, and we're going to say the user ID, and we're going to call the base 10 and 64 as the bit size. So if we have any issue doing that, we're going to check if the user ID, okay, the user ID from the struct is not equal to this user ID here that we just got. If both are not equal, this one we're considering, if both are not equal, oh sorry, I had an issue here. Alright, so if both are not equal, we are going to return 0 as the user ID, and let's define an error here. So we'll create a new error and say unauthorized, right? Something like this. I'm going to say unauthorized. So if everything works as expected, we're now going to return the user's ID, and we're going to return new as the error. So this is the function that will help us check for, Redis to see if this metadata provided is valid. So now let's call this function inside the create to do. So we're going to say, for we to call it, we're going to say the user ID, right, or an error. So if there is an error if error happen while fetching this auth, we're going to call metadata here. So we're going to say if error is equal to new, not new rather, if there's an error while we are trying to get this, we are going to return the JSON with the error. So I'm going to say http status unauthorized. So this is the error, the status code. Then we're going to return the error. Let's return the error string like so. Remember, we've already defined the error here. So if there's an error, return this. If there's an error here too, also return this. So having returned the error, let us put the return statement here to terminate the script. Then the next thing we're going to do is since we discovered that if we scale through to this point, now we're going to assign the user's ID to the to do like so. In an ID case, we will now need to query the database to get to check for this ID. Now that we have the ID coming in from, we have verified that the ID is valid from the metadata by querying our Redis store. The next thing you're going to do if you are building a real-world application is to query your database with this user ID to check if the user exists. When you've done that, then the very next thing to do is to persist the data that is saved to do. Since we don't have any database to save this to do, what we're going to do now is we are just simply going to return this to do to the caller. So we are going to say c.json, and we're going to say status okay, right? And we are going to return this to do. Sorry, so this is supposed to be http the status okay. So that's about it. Don't forget what I said. Save to do to the DB. This is a perfect time you could save this to do. Maybe if you are using a database like Postgres or MySQL or MongoDB, this is where you have to call a helper function to help you save the to do. But since we are not using a DB here, we'll assign the user's ID to the user's ID in this. Remember, we have the user ID defined in this struct. So when we've done that, we are now going to return the to do to the caller. So let us test our implementation thus far. I've gone ahead to create this endpoint for you. So let us have a to do created. Next, the first thing we're going to do here is let's log in the user again. So we're going to hit this login function. Oh, let me start my server here. So I'm going to say go run main.go. All right, let's see. Good. Even before we create that, I forgot to mention that we need to create the route for this, just like we did for the login. So let's head over to our main function above. Let's check our main function. Where is it? Okay, here let's copy this, and let's copy that. Sorry, copy that and paste it above. So we are going to have a route to create a to do. Now let's call create to do here. So this is what we are going to do here after. Sorry. Okay, so say create to do. So this is a function that will help us create the to do. So we have everything good now. So let's terminate, shut down our server and run it again. Okay, so let's run our server again. Cool. Now let us fire this again, the user. Cool, you could see we have the access token and the refresh token. So let's copy this access token and add it here in the authorization header as a bearer token. Let's remove this one. So now we can start adding a request body here. So it will be of type JSON. So the only request body we need to add is the title of the to do. So let us call it the first to do. So this is the title of the to do. So let's make a request. If everything works as expected, we should have a response of 200 and with the to do and the user ID. So let us create this. You can see we have the user ID and we have the title. So we are creating the to do. I observe we didn't put a JSON specification here. So let us go back to our code. In while we are creating a to do, we are going to modify this right now to have a JSON representation here. So we're going to say JSON, right? We are going to have the user ID, and we're going to do the same here for the title of the to do. So we're going to say title. All right, so let us shut down the server and run this again. Clear it up. Okay, so let's run it again on Postman. So we are going to run this request again unauthorized because we don't have the user persisted in any database. So whatever we do, once we shut down the server, everything is in memory. So we need to log in this user again. In an ideal case, this should not be because you already have the user logged in. So when we log in the user again, we're going to get the token and we're going to pass it here. Okay, copy this, paste it here. So let's run it again. You can see now we have this representation. Sorry, now we have the user's ID and we have the title. So we have the user's ID and we have the title. You can now see the very reasons why we need to do this. And this is what will be returned as JSON, not this. So if this is omitted, you have this default, which is not a cool thing to do. So right now we are creating a to do, and let's also test if maybe we passed in the wrong token. Let us see the error. Instead of passing a real token here, let's say we alter this token to be this. Let's run this request again. You can see we are having unauthorized return to us. Next thing to do is let us also not provide a token. Let's say we have no token provided. We also run this. You can see that we have unauthorized. Then let's say we are passing no auth at all, no authentication. We also run this. We're also having unauthorized. So let us go back to the initial implementation and have a valid token passed in here. So let's run this. Okay, you can see that we are always creating a to do. So this is about the tutorial how you can make authenticated requests when a valid JWT is passed. In the very next tutorial, we are going to look at how we can log out a user and invalidate the JWT immediately. So thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you in the very next tutorial. Bye.